And the next thing I was going to talk about is silver linings. Like I struggled to kind of transition. I struggled to accept this life as we are living it right now, because especially because I hadn't been doing well earlier this year, and then I was starting to do amazing, great, perfect, my life exactly how I envisioned it, and then suddenly things changed, and I really, really struggled with that. What has helped me is to just put myself in this life, what we're accepting it as it is, and looking at the silver linings, what I'm able to get out of it that I wasn't able to get before. And like I mentioned before previously, is that like I was so busy doing things out of the house, being active, which was great, but also all these creative projects I had ideas for, I didn't have time for. And now I'm actually doing them, which I love. And I'm actually connecting more with loved ones far away, like you guys, and my family. I'm connecting more with them more than I did even before all of this was happening. What would you say your silver linings are?
I would say for me it's kind of similar with the connection with the families. I feel like I'm talking to them so much more frequently. And then because they know that I'm working from home now, they take no liberties and just calling me whenever they want to. And I'm like, I'm accepting all this because it's just, you want to be around me, you want to talk to me, and that's a nice feeling. And I love having, because Leland hasn't been able to go to Bermuda and everything yet, and hasn't been able to meet my whole family yet. I can still introduce him, and they can still interact, and I like watching him interact with my family, even in these like distant times.
Yeah.
So those are my silver linings, like just like a lot of connection. And we just had a big Skype chat with all of his family, and he's got a huge brothers and sisters pool, and it was really fun to be a part of this like giant Zoom call. So yeah.
That's cool.
I think, yeah, everything's just definitely been the communication. And like you said, you already touched on it, but like the silver lining being you realize what you deem important.
Yeah.
So, and giving
Mm.
time to that, or being able to give the time to that, and being, it's really a blessing. Like you will never have this type of time ever really again, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The length and duration, the consistency of it. We'll never experience something like this again. So it's like a blessing to be able to go through it healthy, and the privilege of like living and having access to the things we need.
Yeah.
That's all a silver lining. Like, we're so blessed to be able to just, okay, you can stay home and do what you like to do, find the things that you like to do, the things like you said you've been putting off. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly. I think one other thing I wanted to add as well, and that's only in the past week I've realized, is that one of my issues, because in terms of like mental health wise, my main issue this year has been anxiety. Like I've had a lot of trouble with it. Mainly it's taken away my sleep, which is annoying, but also I found it difficult to just be still and quiet and on my own. And like that's one of the reasons why I was doing all these activities, not just because it was fun to do, but also like it helped a lot to not even think about what the worries that I was having. But it being in quarantine and having all this time on my own has actually kind of forced me to address them head on in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was so like active and doing things. Like because I'm actually doing yoga and I'm meditating more and I'm writing more, I'm actually sitting down and actually addressing all these worries that I'm having and having to deal with them face on. And I'm actually forcing myself to be more comfortable with being still and being quiet. And that's benefited me more than anything I've done this year so far to help with my anxiety. Is actually just it's kind of like when people go on meditation retreats, like they pay £150 to go on meditation retreat for a few days, and they're not on their phones and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. I have to do that anyway because I'm in quarantine, and it's actually helped me a lot. I feel like that's another silver lining for me.
Yeah, I would say like while everyone was saying like the silver lining is all of the connection they have with their families. Like, yeah, I have been connecting more with like my friends far away and stuff. But for me, it's been a lot of like finding the silver lining in all of the quiet time that I have. Because like I'm living alone. Like there is a lot of dead air in my house, and kind of being left alone with myself for so much time is really an interesting experience. And I think like it has made me like do a lot of introspecting and like think a lot about
Yeah.
how I act. And I would say, like, I'm a very different person when I'm by myself than when I'm with other people. Like everybody is to an extent. But I think it's kind of, it's one of the things I've always felt that, like, I don't think a lot of people know me for who I am. Partly because, like, I'm not very often myself around other people as I know myself. And so kind of reflecting on that and trying to bring that forward into my kind of social life to, like, be
Important.
more just who I am with other people.
Yeah.
I like
So you're
that.
amazing.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah. So you're amazing, and you should be 110% yourself at all times, because you are the best person to be that. So.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
the biggest thing I've been working on is that I have a tendency in social situations to go into, like, panic mode, where I talk really quickly. I, like, word vomit. Like, some people, when they're nervous in social situations, kind of close down and they're really shy. I'm the opposite. I just vomit words constantly. And I think that stems from, like, a panic that I'm not going to be heard, that no one's going to want to listen to me unless I have a lot to say. So, like, yeah, taking the time to kind of think a little bit and phrase what I want to say, how I want to say it, and make sure it is actually, like, who I am behind those words.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you were, like, letting people know you the way you know yourself. That is such a, no, it's not profound, because it's beyond that.
You can give the world is your true self, you know?
That was awesome. That was awesome. You said that so well. My brain is like, whoa. That was so good. You know what? I have a silver lining that's now come off of Nijmeh's point. Like, you're talking about introspection, and I think, like, I'm so glad that that's happening for people. I think that's we don't have enough time dedicated to just, like, what's actually there in front of you and part of you. But another thing, like, I guess the opposite of that is, I'm really, not opposite, just in hand with that, I'm really interested in how quarantine and COVID and all that kind of stuff has not stopped people producing, like, working or doing, like, I'm so impressed by the level of just, and I know it comes at a cost of, that panic and whatever the anxiety is globally, but people are literally imagining a future that is not like the one that we have predicted previously.
Right.
Like, people are literally finding language to describe how much they don't like capitalism, and they don't like, they don't like colonial undertones for these states that we live in. And it's fabulous. And people are doing it in such a personal way. Like, there's so much personal touch to everything. So it's a little less, it's not as inaccessible as it was before, where it's like, talking about this is for people who know this and this, and I'm like, got this education. It's like, no.
It's like, we can all learn.
Absolutely. And not just learn, but, like, we also
express,
contribute. Teach. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, that's super silver lining for me. That, like, says a lot for, where my research gets to go in the future, which is selfish in a way, but, like, wow.
No, this is a really very, very interesting time. And, like, even when it comes down to, I love analyzing, like, promote, like, advertisements. That's what I was going to look for. Like, how are they selling products right now? How are they trying to communicate?
Masterclass ads.
Oh,
right.
Of course, it's the best time for them to advertise. No one's got anywhere to go and anywhere to be.
Exactly. Like, how are people releasing films right now? Like, it's very interesting. Like, it's a whole new landscape that people are trying to utilize. And unfortunately, like, I see a lot of businesses that are clearly attempting to capitalize off of panic. And then I hope what that is going to teach people is that this is what the system produces.
Fear mongering.
This is what they're doing every time. Like, everything you see is the same thing that you're feeling now, So we have to realize that we're always being marketed to. You might feel it a lot more personally now because it's so targeted. It's so, it kind of feels a little obvious in a way right now because they have to change their marketing strategies in order to deal with this. But at all times, we are marked. We are being targeted by bigger establishments, and that's something we always have to look out for.
which is why it's so important, like Nijmeh's point about introspection and like giving the world yourself, and like a self that is unencumbered by like every other expectation that's like just false and not true. That is so, it's hard. I don't know how to, like, there's no great formula, but like I think
it's so important.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one, and it was kind of I had a little bit of a breakdown on Tuesday, and I like went in the middle of the night to the beach, which I know you're not supposed to do, but I did anyway.
Yikes.
In the middle of the night, like
911,
just like
911.
sorry. 999.
I left the house that day, so Boris can't get on my case about it. I am allowed one government mandated walk a day. Okay.
It's okay, Boris. You get back into ICU. All right.
Go back to the ICU, Boris. It's okay. Yeah, and I think like the kind of realization that I came to with regard to like not panicking and being afraid to be myself, like in that it might not be enough, is kind of, as horrible as it sounds, it's like an acceptance that it's possible you might not be loved, like you might not be lovable, and releasing that fear, because like it's very possible that's true, and you have to not care about it for you to ever like actually be free of it, you know, like telling yourself that you are lovable, just like it just kind of bombs over the fear, but to truly cut it out, like you have to move past it and realize that like your worth it's not dependent on whether or not anyone ever loves you.
There we go. Okay, you lost me in the beginning there, and I was like, are we not? But then you got me back, and I completely agree with you.
So that sounds like it's like we're all kind of having realizations and learning a lot about ourselves from this whole quarantine thing, and it's really important to look at those things, especially because it's like we do have to accept, unfortunately it's hard to predict how long this is going to last for, and we just kind of have to accept it for what it is. I had a really hard time with that at first, and what I realized helped me was revising my entire calendar. I just deleted everything that was pre-quarantine, like even things that are coming up. I went in my calendar, just deleted it all. It's just sad, kind of, when you have the notification like, oh, look at this big event that you're looking forward to. I just remembered I have tickets to see Hamilton, and I'm not going to see it.
No,
probably not, because it's beginning of June, and it's been predicted that it'll probably go on past June, at least here in the UK. But it's just like delete all the old pre-quarantine events and just add new events. Add to this new life. So I like for a while I was going to virtual parties, which was fun. I'll put that in my calendar. When I was on Instagram, I might go attend some Instagram lives. It's just like putting in new things that are part of this life, and honestly just kind of I guess what's the word? Just, I was gonna say transform, but you're not transforming. It's like just becoming a part of this new life and accepting it for what it is. And it might be sad to feel this way, but like honestly, I don't even see the point in focusing too much on what you're gonna do post-quarantine or what you used to love and what you loved doing pre-quarantine, because all you have is the present. So just focus on what's happening now, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's very naive to believe that you and your friends are going to be the same people you were before the quarantine afterwards. Like I think everyone is going to come out of it different.
Yeah.
Like physically or not. Like I know since the quarantine has started, I've lost like probably about 7 kilos just because I'm not hungry anymore at all. So like physically, I feel like I'm going to be a different person coming out of the quarantine, but also like emotionally.
We're gonna be different people, and then also to think that things are just gonna snap back to normal once we get back. Honestly, the whole world's gonna be very different. So to think like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do as soon as we get out of quarantine. Unfortunately, that thing might not even be happening anymore. It's just a fact. It's like don't even think about pre-quarantine, post-quarantine. We're here. Just accept it, and
we're in quarantine.
We're here, and just focus on what's actually happening, and look at the silver linings. Another thing that's been really helpful for me is, so anyone that has issues has had struggle with their mental health understands the importance of triggers and recognizing and realizing how to minimize them, and enforcing boundaries around them. So I have a whole notes. I use notes a lot, and I have one that's called self-care boundaries for me. So you can set boundaries for yourself, and you can set boundaries for other people. For me, when I was going on social media, I used the screen time limit app function on iPhones so that I can actually limit my screen time on social media. That's been really helpful. And that's my main thing. In terms of people, like, this is just in general, it's not for me specifically, but in terms of people that have health anxiety, set screen time limits for news apps as well. Also, there's I use this app for my procrastination for uni, but there's this one app on Mac called the self-control app where you can actually ban or like prohibit yourself to go on certain websites. So like if you have health anxiety, you can like ban BBC, ban this website, ban that website, so you're not going on it and triggering yourself, because that's very common for people. And then, for example, someone with OCD, you can actually set a timer for washing your hands, because people that have OCD, they struggle to stop washing their hands. So it's setting a timer for that, and then also planning an activity to do after you wash your hands, so you have that to look forward to. And that might not even be something that might seem so trivial for people that don't have OCD or haven't struggled with health anxiety before. And to be honest, I think that's probably going to be on the rise now with the quarantine thing. But it's like, that's something to even think about. Just even for yourself, you might not even realize that you're becoming more anxious around washing your hands now, because we're told wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, and you should wash your hands, but it actually becomes kind of like disordered when you're washing your hands for a minute and you feel like you can't stop. And a lot of people that have OCD do experience that. So it's setting that boundary for yourself. And then for others, for me, and again, this comes back to my whole struggle with sleep, is I have a bedtime because I need like at least 7 hours of sleep, and as I said before, I wake up 7:30 no matter what, so I have to go to bed by a certain time. I set boundaries for other people. Unfortunately, I would love to do this thing at 11 p.m. or this thing at 12, but I have to go to bed. I'm sorry. That's the boundary I'm setting for other people, to let you know I cannot do that because I need to sleep. And then also, similarly with people who have OCD, you could set boundaries for, say, your flatmates or your friends, like, don't talk to me about washing hands because that triggers me. Don't talk to me about that. That's my trigger. I really appreciate if you could respect that boundary. Do you any of you feel like you have kind of triggers or boundaries that you feel like you need to set for yourself or for other people?
In general, or to do specifically with the current crisis?
In general, or anything that, like, for me recently, I've definitely been very strict with the whole like sleep thing. But that was also before COVID. So yeah, it could be a general thing.
I know with me personally, I'm a very like empathetic person. I take on people all the time.
Yes,
like just like it's like not on purpose. It's just like my body just like absorbs other people's energies. It's just like, you know, I feel like a emotional blob sometimes.
No, you're like a crystal.
Just gathering feelings, you know. And so my most recent and like biggest thing for myself has been to limit when people are allowed to talk to me. Like if I'm at home and that's my personal space, specifically with my job. Sorry, I need to preface
she hangs
that.
Up. Don't talk to me.
No. Specifically with my job. So my boss right now is the type of person who's like a little bit emotionally manipulative. She's a little older as well, and that's like just pulling on all my issues. I was like, because I always want to help people, and she's older and she needs assistance, but she also doesn't understand when she's crossing certain lines that are just not acceptable for our type of relationship. So I'm having to make sure that, especially now that I'm working at home, I only answer the phone starting 8:30. I stop answering the phone at 5:30. Those are your opportunities to speak to me. You cannot talk to me outside of that. I don't care what you thought of at 6 p.m. Talk to me at 8:30, you know? and just making sure that I'm not allowing the manipulative way that she may talk to derail me from my own common sense. Like with
your
this,
own integrity, your own values.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just because you're setting boundaries doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're a bad worker. Like, no, that
I'm
makes
doing
you an
exactly
incredibly
what you
good
hired
worker.
me to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like
structure.
well, the biggest issue I've had recently, and like just gone, Leland's been helping me through it, and also talking to my family about it, but kind of this whole lockdown thing is battling my common sense. So here it doesn't seem to affect people like it affects the rest of the world. Like when someone says it's a lockdown, they're just like and they just do whatever they want anyway. So, and because she's my boss is a busybody, she's a entrepreneur. She's a woman who owns her own real estate business. She's very, very busy minded. She doesn't understand why I might need to adjust my situation to work more from home and less in her office space. She doesn't understand. Yeah, but it's not penetrating the mind. So
you know what will be penetrating? The virus. So
exactly. And it's just wild because like she's actually brought me to tears a couple of times, and it was frustrating because I know exactly what she's doing in my head, but then my emotions don't allow me to like work through it at that moment, so I just give up and just do whatever she wants. Like I agreed to go to the post office when I didn't want to. I agreed to
those are breeding grounds.
Exactly. So like but she prefaces it with, oh, you said you could help me with anything I needed, and I need you to do this. I can't do this. I need to blah 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 blah. But and it's bizarre because it's like when she speaks the words, I'm like, I know you're trying to manipulate me, but like my heart's like, yeah, but she's old and like she needs help.
My hospital bills?
Not exactly.
Please, like, enlighten me. Will you, do you have the cure? Do you have the viral cure?
Exactly. Are you secretly harboring like an antiviral?
Then you
did you guys
no moral position to tell you what to do.
But wait, are like, do you not have the right to refuse under?
I do. It's just so what we've worked out now after I processed that. I had to basically just ignore everything she was saying unless it was relevant to what I said. Because if you're gonna keep on trying to override my common sense and what I'm personally gonna do, I'm just not going to hear that because I'm not gonna allow you to confuse me. So unless you're talking to something that is either a compromise or a solution to the problem, I don't want to hear it. So I just take the phone away, keep talking your mess. This is what I'm willing to do.
That's so important when you're dealing with someone who's trying to manipulate you, because that is exactly like how manipulation works, is that they get you confused and then you're in a more suggestible state. Like you don't realize what you're agreeing to until it's too late. So like making someone state very, very clearly what it is they want and what they're asking you to kind of strips away their ability to manipulate you so much.
And then you make it exactly just based on logic. You tell me what you're doing or what you want me to do, and I can either accept or refuse. It's a very simple transaction. You can't confuse me. Yeah.
Another good strategy in like the business world, if someone's trying to manipulate you there, is to make it like, obviously if it's everyday stuff, it's more difficult, but whenever they're asking you to do something, make sure they send it to you in text. So like you can see exactly like this is what I'm like, is what I have to do.
Right.
Like I know that that's worked for me before with like past managers who've kind of been overstepping bounds. So
that's really good advice. That's good.
Yeah. And also like, if you're worried, you can always literally say, I do not feel safe conducting this work.
Right.
And you can state reasons. Then like the main reason is that you guys are on lockdown like the rest of the world. Right. So there's no reason, like in terms of legalities, what are you gonna be like?
Yeah, but I do agree that it's difficult. Like if someone is trying to manipulate you emotionally, it's not like you might not feel like you're coming from a place of legality. You're coming from a place of like, I'm not doing the right thing by refusing.
Right.
But that is the manipulation working on you. It's confusing you in the moral and emotional realm where you are more malleable, because they're generally foggier concepts.
Exactly, more gray.
It's
True.
facts.
It's very strange being in this particular environment during this, because it's so difficult to tell U.S. citizens what to do, because they have this energy of defiance. It's just like, I don't know what it is, but like literally all of them are just
they think
so
they're
defiant.
in the land of the free. It's like,
exactly.
no.
But they're the most manipulated.
That's what it is. It's so individualist as a society. It's like every man for themselves. I'm just doing me, because at the end of the day, quarantining isn't just for you, it's for people that are the more vulnerable in general.
Exactly. And they can't understand that.
No, it's not, I think a lot of people do. I think they just don't care.
Don't want.
Exactly.
That's it.
So
it's not affecting me. Why am I caring? I'm not, so I'm going by.
And it's so, and you can see that in terms of like environmental concerns here as well. Why? Like, I moved from Vancouver, where you were chastised if you did not recycle correctly. Like, there's not just recycling. It's you need to recycle according to this plan. And then here, not even a recycling bin, not even an option. Like, it's just not a concern. Like, it's just everybody is so focused on whatever's going on with themselves and in their own households or what they want to do. There's no sense of community. Everything's so separate and capital than it is like a unity of community.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like that kind of reduces the quality of life for the people like living there. Like you would think like, oh, you can achieve a happier life if you just focused on your own happiness, but actually like I think that's one of the saddest ways to live, you know?
You can't share it with anybody if you're going to only worry about yourself, because if you only worry about yourself, chances are you're going to hurt a lot of people around you.
We don't all live in a vacuum. Like, we're all relative to other people. It's good to be selfish at times, but I think at a time like this, like, we do need other people. Like, society relies on us relying on other people. Like, we're like literally, even if you don't care about other people, you will need that person, because they, for example, they're the one that picks up your trash in the evening.
Yeah.
They're the one that drives your doctor to you know, their surgery every day. Like, we don't all exist in a vacuum. We exist in communities, as a fact. And like, the minute that we all become very selfish is the minute that we're actually making the community more vulnerable to actually, I mean, not to be dramatic, but kind of honestly collapsing, you know?
No, that's what this is bringing to light so much for me. It's watching how different communities and different cultures deal with the same crisis, and it brings to light how stark differences are sometimes, and it's a little terrifying.
Bermuda is so good compared to the UK.
So good.
Amazing.
Bermuda's doing a good job.
Bermuda's doing so well.
Like the premier, like hats off to him.
He's done amazing from the start. Really stepped up.
Calm about it all.
Yeah. Honestly.
I love it here.
Yeah.
It just makes
sense.
Except
for the people who are like going out and being like, I'm just gonna have a party anyway, let's go Friday.
There's always gonna be people like that. But I just feel like there are a disproportionate amount of people are doing that in some places compared to others.
And there's like disciplinary actions, not like, oh, you're just, you know, it's a warning, like $10,000 fine, 6 months in jail. Come on, let's have it.
Like, I'm not a fan of encouraging more police control, but I'm a fan of there just being more enforcement somehow.
Yeah, no, here is literally nothing's changed. Like,
that's scary.
It's terrifying. The unresponsiveness is ridiculous. I mean, in certain places, like we went to Walmart today, we had to get some groceries and stuff. they have like a new system where you can only go in one way and you can only come out one way, and every
one
all
in,
the
one
carts
out.
exactly
Yeah.
all the carts are being sanitized as soon as they're being put in. You can only take carts from certain areas because those are the ones that are sanitized and that type of stuff. There's blue lines all over the store to show you where the 6 feet distance is. So like in some businesses you see a response, but in the general public, nobody cares. Like it doesn't look like anyone's really taking precaution. I live in a very like close residential area, so like there's a lot of houses right next to each other, and there's a lot of kids over here, and I always see them out playing or whatever. They're kids, they need to get their energy out, but like also make sure that like you're not mixing households, because like what if somebody's sick over here and they were asymptomatic and then they give it to that kid and now the whole family's sick? I think there's a lack of that kind of understanding. And then like just down the street from us, people were throwing a house party like Friday. They were out in the street playing rap music, and there was a bunch of people just out there, and we were like, what are y'all
playing
doing?
that rap music?
Seriously, Leland turned into a crotchety old man real quick. He was like, excuse me, gentlemen.
But that's like, I think it's like that, you know, it's all pointing.
Oh, we didn't say anything.
We didn't say anything?
No, I didn't. I didn't reprimand them at all.
You were just staring through your blinds.
I did. I sent bad energy.
Oh my God! Make a sign and just like stand by your window and be like,
"You better, you better stop it."
Like you are setting the boundaries you need to set.
Yeah.
And it really isn't about empowering yourself and advocating for yourself and your own well-being. That's what it boils down to. The next thing I wanted to talk about was this is also something that's, I guess, a concern for anyone that's had mental health problems is relapse and relapse prevention and crisis management. So I, having experienced like anxiety before and depression before, the first thing I thought of when I realized that I'm gonna have to stay in my house all the time is I'm gonna relapse. And I was mainly concerned about depression, but plot twist, I didn't relapse in depression, I relapsed in anxiety. And that basically happened. Last week, and that was rough. Well, actually, I relapsed in depression a little bit, but anxiety more. But the one thing that you have to realize is that, like, in terms of mental health, it's not linear. It's not like you get bad and then you have treatment and you get better. Boom, that's it. It's more kind of like this, and it's gonna be like that probably your whole life, especially if you have something that's fairly chronic like anxiety. And it's realizing that it's not about preventing it entirely, it's about managing it. And one thing that I've used before in service, not the service I work for now, but the service I used work for before, was something that was actually a worksheet to help you recognize when you're starting to relapse, so that you recognize the signs. And it's based on a whole traffic light system. So there's green lights. These are all the things that you're thinking, because it's based on CBT. These are all the things that you're thinking. These are all the things that you're feeling. These are all the things that you're doing that are signs that you're great. Amber light is these are all the things that you're thinking. These are all the things that you're doing. These are all the things that you're feeling that are signs that maybe you're not doing so well and you should be doing some of the things that helped you before. And then red light is crisis, and that's when you would be calling in the UK. You can call like Samaritans, and they're like a 24/7 helpline that we always recommend. That's when you could also call the mental health crisis. Luckily, I've never actually gotten to the point of crisis. I've used Samaritans a couple times, but I haven't like had to like call A&E or 999 or anything like that. Not that that's bad or good, it's just a fact. Some people are in crisis and they have to use that. But it's just realizing that it is likely going to happen at some point and being ready for it, because it's about empowering yourself to manage that. You're someone with depression or anxiety, you are not depression or anxiety, and managing it. So, and another thing that really helps is when you feel like you may be relapsing is, one, do not panic. 2, remembering that you actually have a plan because you did the whole traffic light worksheet, because you've realized what structure you need, the activities you need to do to help you. So remembering that you have a plan. And then 3, remembering that this plan can always be adjusted according to your needs. And I've had to adjust it for me, because one thing, like I've mentioned before, I never realized how much I needed social interaction. I've actually had to add to my plan is call someone every day. And that's okay, because I've realized that, and it's learning about yourself. So it's anyone that has struggled with it, they know what relapse is like, and you know that it happens. It's that mental health isn't a linear thing. It fluctuates. You're good, and then you're not so good sometimes. It's about managing it and having a plan. Yeah.
I think that it's true for like everything. And I think if your mental health was kind of static, that's almost a sign that like you've plateaued a bit in life. Like I think mental health fluctuates the same way like the good or bad things in your life will fluctuate. Like you can't expect your life to just always be getting better. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so like there are totally cases of like, yeah, you're gonna take a bit of a dip because like, you know, some shitty stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And that's normal, and it's just about how you deal with that and getting stronger because of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn between graduating and now, and it's still ongoing because I have to remind myself of it daily, is that although it's easy to say, oh, I'm doing so well and now this happened and I'm completely derailed and everything's always happening to me. It's easy to feel that way because that's how life goes, but it's all about kind of just moving with it. I'm not going to allow this sharp turn to derail me completely. I've got to figure out a way to keep going, because the biggest thing that I keep on reminding myself is that time doesn't care how you feel right now. You know, everything continues moving in a certain path, in a certain way. Everything's going to keep moving around you, and in order to kind of handle how life is throwing you around, you have to just keep on pushing forward in some way, even if everything else changes. If you do that one thing that moved you a step forward that day, even if it's like, I washed my hair today and that made me feel a tiny bit better of myself, and I've moved an inch forward, and that's okay. And
it's
just
going
kind
back
of
to
finding
the base, isn't it? You did the body care. You did something that you achieved something that day. You did some closeness to others. You did something that you enjoyed. That's all you need to keep going. And even though it doesn't feel like it's helping, it does help.
And I think, can I just add that I think it's really important, while like, to recognize the importance of trying to do something to move yourself forward every day, to also practice active forgiveness of yourself when you have days where you just can't do it. Like personally, I call them days when I wake up in the wrong parallel universe. Like sometimes I wake up and I just feel like, nope, I don't want to do it today. I don't want to play. I want to lie in bed and binge watch Star Wars. Like
fair.
It happens, and while it's probably it's good to not let those days expand to swallow up months of your life. And I don't let that happen, but sometimes you need to forgive yourself and like let yourself rest and say, okay, look, it's a really hard time. And productivity is going to dip. You know, like you're going to have days where it feels overwhelming, and it's okay to let yourself take the time to process that in whatever, like just to switch off for a bit, because a lot of stuff is happening all the time at the moment. I had a day like I said a while ago, a few days ago, that I just couldn't do anything, and I felt really bad because like the day before I'd had a meeting with my supervisor and I had loads of stuff that I had to do. And I woke up that morning and I just felt completely overwhelmed. Like I'd slept really badly and the world felt like it was closing in around me. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing it today. I'm going to lie in my bed and eat caramel covered popcorn and watch some movies, because like I just needed to switch off. And it's always something that I struggle with, like forgiving myself for having to do that, because I feel a lot of guilt about it. So I think like, just actively realizing that it's okay to take to not be okay for a bit.
Yeah,
exactly. And knowing that at that stage, it's not over, it's not done, we're not finished. Like, you can take this time to feel that way. You can take this time to just throw your blanket back over your head and be like, I'm out today. No. But just knowing that at some point I'm gonna come from underneath this cover.
Yeah.
And at some point I'm gonna get back up again.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're going to reach that goal kind of, for me at least, kind of propels me through those moments. It's like, I will take my days. It might be one day, it might be 3. Sometimes I've gone 4 days where I'm just like, I am not doing this. I quit. But knowing in the back of my mind, all those days where I have allowed myself to stay underneath my covers, knowing that, okay, that's the last day. We're getting up tomorrow. We're going to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to be, but something's going to happen. Yeah, just knowing that at some point you're going to keep on going is the thing you have to remember. Like, you could stop, but it's not over. Yeah, it'll keep going eventually.
I would say for me, I definitely still struggle with that. I struggle with the it's okay to not be okay. But I find that for me, it's even harder to continue when I'm already starting to dip. Like, if I allow myself to dip a bit, every time I allow myself to dip, it's going to be that much harder to get out. So for me, I try my very best not to. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there are going to be those days when you just can't, and you have to not blame yourself, because that's just going to make things worse. You have to trust that you will come out of it. And honestly, I have come out of it. Like, it sucked. It was awful, but I'm honestly doing pretty good right now.
I would say, like, I agree with you, Morgan. It's something that I kind of have worked through a lot in the past. Like, a few years ago, when I graduated from my undergraduate, I felt like I needed to keep moving to kind of not dip back down.
Yeah.
And that was actually part of my problem, in that I didn't let myself experience those, like, lows. I was running from them.
Yeah.
And I think, like, for me, it's important to be able to sit with those negative emotions, because they have something to teach you. Mm-hmm. They have something to teach me, and it's like, I get a lot of my insights sometimes from, like, the lowest points.
Yeah.
And that helps me, like, come out stronger. And part of being able to do that has come from trusting myself that I'll always be able to get myself out of that hole, that like, I am strong enough, you know. You can go, like, right into the void and you'll still be able to climb back out.
Yeah. You will always climb back out. It might be more difficult sometimes, but you will do it.
Yeah. And I think, like, that it's almost made the dips less scary, because I feel like originally, whenever I would start to dip, the dip itself would, you know, kind of suck. But then the worst part of it was this sudden fear of, like, oh my God, it's going to start getting worse forever. And then I'm going to have to do this whole horrible thing. But actually, if you just let the dip be the dip, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as you kind of can make it out to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's, like, something I've been dealing with over the past few years as well.
Yeah.
Can I chime in with a structural comment?
Yeah. Sure.
So I'm pretty, like, anti-hierarchy. So I know, like, for discussion, a lot of the discussions and rhetoric that I hear around kind of mental health and, you know, just general well-being, I find them really tricky, because for me in my brain, now that I've, like, so rigorously trained it to kind of think against hierarchy, it's difficult to kind of navigate. So, like, how do I personally practice not coming apart, as it were, or, you know, coming apart enough so that there's, like, just some space, but it's okay, it's all tethered back in together. But recently, I think on my musings with my walks with my mom, what's been really interesting is, like, if you forego the hierarchy of, like, well-being, I suppose, and you think of, like, high highs and low lows and all that kind of things, what I've been visualizing it as, like, there's just center points of things that I love in this huge web of my life. And when I, like, sometimes I just get farther away from them, and sometimes I get closer. And it's interesting to feel like that contraction and that kind of distancing from them, where it's not so much that I'm guilty for not being close to them. It's just that I needed to walk a little bit further away. And in that walk further away, or that run further away, or whatever it is, that push, it's really interesting seeing like what else is around. I think if we're thinking of it as like a flatter landscape, where it's like, you know, you've got just all these other things in your life to look at and see. Because I know for me, there's a point where, you know, the thought of having to crawl out of something, or having to like move up something or move down something, is just like, I can't, like, I don't,
sometimes it's insurmountable.
It is, and
it seems that way.
Exactly that. Insurmountable is a perfect word, and it's like I lose so much in that. It's just not it's not a sustainable type of movement, if you know what I mean. Like there's, you know, like it's so much, like thinking about COVID, for instance, I have to keep my mind something like, you're not going to come out of it or whatever. Or you never like, you've just always been going through it. Like it's just through.
Yes,
and like
yes,
after it, you'll keep on going through and through and through. And it's not to say that that's like the model, the universal useful model, but you know, I think spatially, especially because I don't know, the talk of like land and indigenous methodologies and all that kind of stuff is really, really huge in Canada and informs a lot of my work. So, you know, taking this time to literally see the land coming back to itself and us coming back to land, and like, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's not all up and down. Sometimes it's just like through, and it's the weirdest.
It's literally only through, because like to put a, like you said, like a hierarchical perspective on it, you're consuming that the highest is the only, or is the proper way of functioning, and it's the way everyone should be functioning, when this is only a temporary state, because everything is temporary. That's how life works. It's a high and a low, and a high and a low, and sometimes you're skating by, like it's just how it is.
And it's just a different kind of energy that you use, right? Like I feel like when you try and accelerate, like going up a hill takes a lot of energy. Like going down a hill, you just let loose and are like, whatever. But like it takes a lot more diligence. It takes a lot more restraint. It takes a lot more structure, I think, to just walk.
You know, like what's interesting? What's interesting about what you just said is like the difference in energy, really. So you're, if you think of it as a high and a low, that means that you can only be either moving 100 at 110%, or you can be 0%. That's just assuming that you're only at those two levels. But what about the times where you're here, or here, or here, you know?
But like I said, that's absolutely just kind of things that I've been recently.
No, it's an interesting discussion point.
But it's a good point, because especially for me, as because I've done a lot of research and practice on mindful meditation, and believe it or not, despite the fact that my whole like master's dissertation was on it, I fell off that for like over a year. I wasn't really doing it, and I'm only now another silver lining to COVID-19 is I'm only now getting back into it, and I've been doing it every day. And what's been great about it is that, like you said, in mindful meditation, there's no good or bad. You just are.
It is. You just allowing it to be and allowing it to pass.
Exactly. It's the whole practice of a non-judgmental approach to existing and being and all your thoughts. And that's so helpful in a lot of ways. It's helpful for you to realize, like, honestly, like you just need yourself. Like you, the way you are right now is enough. And however you are, there's no good or bad. It's just you are existing. So it's good for that. It's good for allowing you to remember that you're going through it, like
and extending that generosity to others too. I think during this time it's easy, and although, you know, some people need to be stopped, like stay in your house, but like for the most part, like even if I see people, I'm like, my goodness, like you hate humanity. It's also like, you're like, I can also see where your web is probably equally as complex as mine. So I will pass judgment.
We can't assume people's situations. Like if we see a bunch of people outside, what if their inside isn't so great? You know?
Absolutely.
You know,
Hi, baby.
That was the whole.
So cute. Katara makes a cameo.
Hello.
She's like, who the hell are those people?
And
look
what a mush.
Oh.
He's like, I am.
He's like, no.
She's so witch. Anyways, continue, Morgan. I apologize. That was a tangent.
I was gonna say on a more technical aspect. If we're looking at the more common mental health problems like depression and anxiety, in framing it with CBT, depression occurs because you're having thoughts that are ruminations. They're repetitive thoughts about the past. Worrying or anxiety, they're what if thoughts. So there are thoughts about the future. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if that happens? Mindfulness meditation helps you in terms of your thoughts because it brings you to the present. So it's like addressing, oh, I'm having a rumination thought. Oh, I'm having what if thought. That's fine. I'm just going to bring myself back to the present. These thoughts are maintaining the difficulties that you're having, anxiety or depression. And when you kind of address those thoughts in a different way, you're coming out of it in a way that it's more manageable. So instead of constantly ruminating and constantly feeling depressed, you're actually, when you're being more present, you're not doing that. So it helps your depression that way. For anxiety, when you're constantly worrying because you're thinking, what if that happens? What if that happens? What if that happens? And you're in the future, mindfulness can bring you back to the present. Like, oh yeah, I understand you're concerned about it, but there's nothing you can do about that. So let's bring it back to the present, what's happening right now. And there's a lot of different ways and tools that you can use to do that. I won't go into it because that's a whole other lecture. Like, we actually do 3 different sessions in the service that we work on about those tools, but it's all around worry management. So there's a worry diary. Every time you have a worry, write it down and save it for later. And what you'll do is when you have worry time, which is what we talk about, for me, that's like every day at 5:45.
Nice.
You go through all your worries and you think, is this a practical worry or is it a hypothetical worry? Practical worries are, oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of ketchup.
Happened to me 3 times last week.
The good news is it's a practical worry because you can actually do something about it. So then what you do during worry time is you plan how you're going to, solve that problem. Or is it a hypothetical worry? Oh my God, what if I get coronavirus? Literally, honestly, there's nothing you can do about it. You can do things, but constantly worrying about it isn't going to make it happen less.
No.
You know what I mean? So
that is such a difficult thing for me to accept. I think that if I'm meant
for everyone,
yeah,
if you're a forward-thinking, we've always been taught to be a forward-thinking people,
right?
Like, plan your next steps, do this.
Yeah.
Like, I think VHS had a lot to do with
that.
like, your future, your future.
It's all about
what's happening in your future.
Exactly. So it's like,
yeah.
There is no
the thing
present.
is
there is no past. There's only, there is no present. What the fuck? There's no there's no past. There's no
Antoinette is so mindful. Like, she's not even here. She's not even there. Like,
she's not present.
She's on a whole other plane.
But seriously,
we talk about how like worrying is a behavior. You do it, and that can be exhausting and all-encompassing. Worrying is a function. It helps you prepare. But what if it actually doesn't? When you're worrying about things that you don't have control over, all it does is make you more worried. It makes you think that you're helping it by preparing for it, but you can't prepare for something that you don't have control over. And
you just spoke to me on such a level. I'm sorry.
Listen, I'm someone that has struggled with anxiety for so long. I actually think I have an addiction towards it because I find myself all the time doing it, and I think
like that's your comfortable spot. That's
I'm comfortable because I'm in control. By worrying about it, it's gonna make it happen less, and I feel like, oh, I've seen it in my head. I've worried about it. It's fine. But the reality is, I just spent 20 minutes thinking about something I actually don't have any control over, and all I do now is feel my heartbeat, and I'm like agitated because I'm thinking about how it could happen, and it actually hasn't happened less. It doesn't help. So it's managing those worries, because it's fine to have them. It's just when it come all encompassing everything you do, that's when you gotta start to kind of sort them into, is it practical or is it hypothetical? If it's practical, do something about it. If it's hypothetical, you gotta let it go. How do you let it go? A lot of the things that we do is talking yourself through it. Will worrying about it make it happen less? How important is it actually? Will we be worrying about this in 5 years' time? And then also using grounding techniques like a lot of like kind of meditation, mindfulness, and also like general actual, like grounding yourself, like literally feeling the floor and focusing on that.
It's a lot of sensory things. Like when people are having panic attacks, for
Yeah.
sure. Like they talk about like biting down on something or doing something to like shock your system back into the present.
Yeah.
You know, get
Yeah,
out of your
that's
mind
not like
state.
harmful because some people.
Yeah.
do that.
Go stick a fork in the socket. You'll be alright.
To clarify to listeners, do not stick a fork into a socket. We are not going to be held responsible.
Self-harm, anything like that. Something that will shock you, but in a safe manner. Like, I don't know, putting your face in some cold water or something, you know?
No, not even that.
I know, but like, no.
I actually use the Worry Time app on my phone that's distributed by this organization that came up with the whole Worry Time concept. And what you do is every time you have a worry or you catch yourself having a worry, you write it down, and what it does, it saves it and it locks it somewhere so you can't look at it until you actually get to Worry Time, and then you can look at it, go through your worries, and you can sort through it and say, and for me, it's from 5:45 to 6 p.m. every day. And what I'll do is I'll go through each of them. Can I do anything about it? Yes. Okay. What am I going to do? Plan that out. If I can't do anything about it, literally what it does, it allows you to scrunch up the piece of paper and then flick it away.
Oh, that's kind of cool though.
And then at 6 p.m. every day, I've actually been going to this virtual like mindfulness meditation session on Zoom with some lady named Kathleen in Wisconsin.
Nice.
And so it's great because I have that planned for after Worry Time. I go through my worries. I was about to say shout out to Kathleen. Shout out to Kathleen. I'll link her Zoom thing as well because she's always being like, I can help more people. She's lovely. Another thing that's helped me is I do what one of my past therapists called grab the good stuff. And I do that. At first, I only started doing that every night.
Smash those buttons, Phoebe.
At first, she recommended doing it every night, but I actually do it as I go along the day. When I used to leave my house back in those days, I would type it up on my phone. But now, because I'm home all the time and I have my diary with me all the time, I just write it down in my diary. And what you do is you just make a list of good things that are happening. So it can be
just like in the world or to you.
Anything that makes you feel good. So like for today, I had a really good yoga practice this morning. So I will list that. I also enjoyed. I finished cropping this shirt using this sewing machine that I have. That. So like little things like that, like just writing as you go along to remind you about how good things are and focusing on the good things.
Oh, a gratitude journal.
Yeah, it's like a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
Another thing that's helped me is a coronavirus funny things list, which sounds awful, but it's also it's another kind of silver linings. Like, for example, I don't know if I would have ever been introduced to Nijmeh's mini campfire and marshmallow roasting if it wasn't for COVID-19.
There we go.
So much fun. All right. Another good little tip to like inject fun into your day. I started doing this thing because I like chew a lot of gum because I like to chew, but I don't want to eat. And so whenever, instead of just like putting gum in my mouth, I throw it up in the air and try and catch it. And it always makes me laugh because I'm so bad at it. Like, when you and you catch it with your mouth, like, it's just a fun little thing. It takes like 2 seconds and it always makes me smile.
It takes me hours because I can't catch things.
Your tongue's so long. You should be good at it.
But I'm not, unfortunately.
Smashing buttons, catching gum.
Smashing buttons and catching gum. Title of the video.
Another funny thing I like to think about is if it weren't for coronavirus, I would have never seen the footage and read about the Thai monkey gangs, which to this day, I kind of want to write a book, like a movie about it. Have you seen that?
Right. Yeah. They're brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's sad, but very funny. Things to remember in general. To allow transition, this is, as every single email from an organization has told you, this is unprecedented.
If I see that word one more time,
I don't want to hear it.
And
not that word.
And it's like, we haven't experienced this before, so like you just have to actually allow yourself to transition, and you also have to allow yourself frustration as well, and accept, and we were talking about this earlier, accept and allow setbacks or bad days, because we're like all learning how to deal with this.
Right.
Don't internalize emotions. That's a big one for me. Remember, every single feeling that you're having is valid, good and bad.
Yes.
Slow baby steps. This is big with the whole scheduling thing, with the base, body care, achievement, closeness with others, and enjoyment. Don't like schedule like 5 things in each of those realms every day, every minute. Like, start with small baby steps. Maybe you do one very small thing that's related to body care today, and you do another thing that's related to enjoyment tomorrow, and then you build up to doing each of those things every day. And also, don't take yourself too seriously. Just like laugh at yourself, because honestly, we're gonna be doing like some crazy funny crap, because this is a weird time, and just you know, take it easy sometimes.
Yeah, so don't laugh at me for my gum thing.
Oh no, it was a lot. It was laughing through you, surely.
Through you. And also, the most important thing to remember is, this is so cheesy, but it's like really important for me, is like remembering that self-care literally is the ultimate form of self-love.
That's so important.
Sometimes it's hard to do all the things that we should be doing. My biggest challenge, but what is also the most important thing for me to do most of the day, is my nighttime routine. And I hate it. I hate it because I feel like a child who needs to do this every night before bed. I have this whole like sleep support plan, and it just feels so patronizing because I'm a damn adult. I don't need to go to bed at 10:30. But I can't be
mad at yourself for setting self-boundaries.
But I do.
You're your own parent.
Yeah,
yeah, I know, you really do. Part of me is like, I just wish I wish I could just be like other people, to go to sleep at any time and wake up when they need to, but I'm not that person. And
yeah, but you're not other people. Stop generalizing yourself.
Other people are struggling.
What I'm doing is loving myself. I want to be rested.
I think like there are a lot of people out there that are, you know, like the other people, that they just go to sleep whenever, but they would be better off having a like structured sleep schedule and like a structured bedtime
like
routine,
me.
because it does make such a big difference.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, it's so important. So I've fallen off of it now. So I'm admitting that I'm not currently doing it, but while I was doing it, I think I was the most successful in like self-care as I've ever been, and it was wild. So I got a journal. It's bright yellow. Makes me think of sunshine.
Here's my journal.
Where is it? Oh, it's right here.
We show off our journals.
Everyone's got like a freaking bluish greeny journal.
Well,
and then there's the yellow.
Why do I have a blue journal? I should have yellow.
Because that's your
you
favorite
need to
color.
get on the yellow vibe.
I know that about you, because I feel like ever since I known you, like a lot of things you've owned have been that like aqua greeny color.
True.
That is
literally
journals, and I just have like receipts of paper that I've just written notes on. I don't know. I'm like not thriving. But like they're receipts, you know, when you crumple up receipts.
LCBO receipts.
Anyways,
love it.
Sorry, continue.
No, I was saying that this journal in particular has been very interesting. I realized something about myself. I was only productive in school because somebody else was structuring my day. And now as a human being, like as an adult, it's so weird not having someone say you have to be up by 8:30, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and then you gotta do this.
You gotta be your own adult.
Exactly. And it was such a reality check. It was weird because I didn't think that I had a problem until after I graduated. And I was like, I have never structured my own time. Ever. And even in the opportunities that I have had to structure time, I wouldn't. I would just not do anything. Mm-hmm. And then I realized if I continue to do that, we're just not going to move forward.
Yeah.
So we got to start structuring ourselves.
Yeah.
But what this journal did is it breaks down, like you do your like regular month plan, and then you have a list of tasks that you want to accomplish in that month. So it's like big picture. And then on the other side of the calendar, it has your wins from last month. What did you accomplish? What are you really proud of? What's your plan for next month? That kind of thing. And then it also breaks down the weeks. So now I have my weekly goals. I have my weekly targets. Yeah. I also have a checklist, and I'm big on checklists. If I can check it off, it makes me feel like it's actually done, you know? So like writing out a list, be like, I want to meditate, I want to do my affirmations, I want to do yoga, I want to do something physical. Something has to happen where my heart rate goes up.
Yeah. I need that too.
And even coming down to just making sure my face is not oily, because I like it when my face is clear. I get really self-conscious when it's not. So the only way to solve that problem is to make sure that I'm keeping it, pH balanced, So just making sure that I have structure in my day has been so important.
Yeah.
And for my mental health. Yeah.
At the beginning of the year was I did like a star system. So it was like I made a list of things that were worth a star, and then I had like a bar that filled. So like over the course of the month, if I got like every 50 stars I earned, I got like a treat. So like the first one was like I bought myself a fancy coffee. This was like in January. And it was like a bath bomb, or then like a face mask, and like they went up. So then it was like I wanted a new hoodie, so I got a new hoodie and stuff like that.
Nice.
And that worked really well for me because it meant like it was averaged over the course of the month. So it didn't matter if some days I only did like 3 kind of star-worthy things. And the star-worthy things were like put moisturizer on, like do like very basic things for me. And so it didn't matter if I only had like 3 positive things a day, and then some days I did like 10.
Yeah,
it was over the course of the month, and like you could actually every day like filling in the bar a little bit more was so satisfying.
Oh, that's amazing. At the end of the day, it's all about your needs. Some people have a lot more needs than others. Some people have different needs, and it's just recognizing that you have needs and addressing them. So for me, like I know that I have certain needs according to my different mental health difficulties, namely anxiety at the moment. And it's just realizing that I need to meet those needs because I love myself. I want to do well. And I just feel like I must advocate for myself and my well-being by doing what I know I need to do to meet my needs, and taking care of yourself is
exactly
a form of self-love.
The right word. Advocate.
I am
sorry. I'm just sorry.
It's just you were frozen as well, so I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like so shouting when you look like I just get so.
Oh man. Yeah, you have frozen right at the moment.
I'm so sorry. All I meant to say was it's great. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So that I just see myself every time I'm like, oh, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? I'm like, well, it's because I love myself. I'm advocating for myself and my well-being, and I'm taking care of myself.
I love this conversation. It's been an awesome topic today.
Guys, you don't know how much I've needed like a group therapy session. This has been very enlightening. I learned that what I do when I lay on the floor when I get overwhelmed is called a grounding technique. Is it productive?
But you just said.
Yes, it is, because you get your outcome.
I have to lay down on the
solid
like ground.
Inductive.
Every day for a specific time, and then it'll be productive.
There we go. I need to schedule my grounding. That's what needs to happen.
I have a whole just document of helpful resources. So that includes like different, like the mindfulness Zoom chat that I go to. I also created a sleep support plan for myself, but also for anyone else that might need it. Because I found that was so helpful for me. I also have a copy of the relapse prevention worksheet that we use. There's also, I wanted to quickly mention that circulating around, I guess, must be the whole NHS because we got it at my job. Someone came up with a way to manage your mental well-being in light of COVID, and it uses the acronym FACE COVID. F, focus on what's in your control. A, acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. C, come back into the body. E, engage in what you're doing. C, committed action. O, opening up. V, values. I, identify resources. D, disinfect and distance.
Everyone has their different techniques, so I think that's a great one to work with for people who don't even know where to start facing.
Yeah, because there's so many things, and that's nice and short, and it just helps you to start with something. Yeah. So that's it, everyone.
Well,
thank you,
Morgan. Thank you.
I hope that
Alexa.
I hope that wasn't too much of a downer either.
No, it was really good. In a way, like it's made me feel like very, very connected in the way like I'm not alone in a lot of the feelings that I feel. Yeah. I'm not the only one who processes information this particular way. So just bouncing off of and hearing all of you and how you're currently dealing and how you're dealing in life in general, with the struggles that I know that we all have to go through in our different ways. It's been really helpful for me. Just helped my brain a little bit. Because when you feel like you're by yourself, it's 100% worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like that's one of the biggest things I've been kind of worried about recently is that because like I live alone, I don't know how everyone else is coping. So like I have down days or I have days when like I just can't focus on my work. And I'm like, how is everyone else still managing to do so much? And like I'm really stressed out about this.
It's back into social media and the look of perfection.
Exactly. That's why I can't go on social media right now.
Like everyone looks like, oh, getting done, work done, having coffee, blah blah blah, ticking off lists. When they're really sitting on their couch and Netflix is on in the background. Like, stop lying.
I miss my social media. I hate to say it, but I miss it. My Instagram account was deleted.
Relationships with it. Like I have a very love-hate relationship with it, but I think, Wallis, you've always thrived off it. You loved it and it worked well with you.
And you also use it as a platform to really like engage everyone. You use social media correctly and not just like thirst trapping, you know, even though if that's your vibe.
Just garbage memes. I wish I could thirst trap, but I'm just like literally just dehydrated all the time. Yikes.
No, but I think like being candid about, you know, struggling and like what you're struggling with and how you're coping is so important in this day and age, like to use social media correctly, like Phaedra says, like loitering and just like putting out kind of false truths about how much you're getting done and how well you're coping isn't helping anyone, yourself included. Like it might make you have a minor ego boost, but then you're just gonna feel guilty about not being truthful.
Yeah,
you know.
Exactly.
So I think like this is it's so wholesome and important for me.
Yeah.
And also like people who aren't engaging. It's true. But like also people that I think what should be clear and what has been clear to me by a lot of my professors and like my mentors and stuff is like no one is asking or no one should be demanding you to share if you don't want to share. Like don't feel I think there's a huge rhetoric and a narrative happening where people are like this is who I'm staying home for and all kind of stuff, and which is great and useful if it's useful for you. But if it's not useful, like do not feel like someone is holding a gun to your head and making like treat that like it's amazing. We're at a time where nothing like all the rules are not like they're just so transparently not rules. So don't do it. You don't have to do the thing.
I actually had to write down on a piece of paper and stick it up on the wall today to remind myself, just do what you need to do. You know?
Tea. A whole beverage.
I have to admit, I like need to go.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Bedtime
boundaries.
Bedtime for us.
That's fine.
Should I just briefly mention what next week's topic is going to be?
Yes.
Do a get ready with me with Antoinette.
I'll be doing all of that next week. I'll show you what I use, what I don't use, why I don't use certain things.
Yes, educate us.
Can it be a discussion? Because I'd like to talk about what I use as well.
Oh, of course, because we all have different skin types. So it's like what works for us, what doesn't work for us, why we don't think so. The evolution of skin.
My desperate needs not use white.
Sometimes I don't put on lotion at all.
So next week's topic is skin. It's skin.
The skin we're in.
All right.
I can't even do that.
I gotta go.
Okay, I love you all.
All right.
Thank you so much, Morgan. That has done the work.
Thank you, Morgan.
All right. Love you. I will see you all later.
Bye.
Bye.